Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined on this Friday morning, this glorious, victorious Friday morning
Here we
by
go.
Derek Brown and Pat Fitzmaurice. Fellas, how are you doing after witnessing just an excellent quarterback battle on Thursday Night Football, which has been more common than usual this season? D-Bro?
I'm doing great. I mean, Jamar Chase winning people weeks, proving that, he's outside of the contract stuff, should have been a top two wide receiver one overall for some. So it was a glorious game, dude. That moment, and I know, all props to, like, I'm all for the trash talk. Like, don't flag the guys, let them go out there and play, let them have fun. And I was all for the smoke that Jamar Chase gave back to Lamar Jackson after kind of standing there, throwing the ball into the stands, and Chase standing on like the 1 yard line for 5 seconds. I was loving every second of it. And I know not a lot of people will. I loved every moment of it.
So I thought it was weird as a response to Lamar, because I didn't think Lamar did anything that unusual. Like, maybe I'm just used to watching Lamar. He does that a lot. But having said that, even if Lamar had done nothing, which I kind of think he did, I wouldn't have minded Jamar Chase doing that. He was on an all-time heater, like, do whatever you want. Like, if you're not hurting other players, like, I encourage taunting. Like, I even when it goes against the Ravens, like, I'm super in on that.
Man.
So
like,
I had no
you
problem.
can't handle it. That's sports, dude. Like, I used to smack talk all the time when I was growing up playing sports.
Yeah. Fitz, what was your big takeaway from the game? I mean, just obviously the second time we've seen these teams go against each other, two of the best games of the NFL season so far, and just fantasy points galore.
Yeah, it was spectacular. And, the one thing I have never loved about the Thursday games is that if you get a game like that from Jamar Chase and you're going against Jamar Chase, you're toast before you even get to Sunday. Like, you're doomed, and the Sunday doesn't even matter. That I don't love. But can we not get any more 5-target Jamar Chase games? Like, can we make sure he always gets more targets, or as many targets as T. Higgins when Higgins is playing? The guy's just so good. And so is Joe Burrow. And that was a really fun game. And I regret betting the under, which actually looked pretty good for a while. And then, boy, did that go up in flames fast.
Fitzy, I want to ask you real fast, how, as much as you talked about in this entire offseason, how much did you love seeing the Chase Brown 11 target performance? Because that was freaking beautiful too, dude.
Yeah. I mean, if you want your running back to be impactful against the Ravens, you have to do that. Use them as sort of, extensions of the running game. Because if you hand it to Chase Brown and ask him to go between the tackles against the Ravens, yeah, he actually did better in that capacity than I thought he might do. But like, it's hard to do business against the Ravens that way. So yes, by all means, like I love seeing that sort of a target.
Somebody might have talked about Chase Brown's ability to handle a high, heavy workload all offseason. I don't know if they're on the show, but I think that was mentioned on this broadcast, right?
Yes, the Worm was challenging me the other day off the top of my head. Could I
To remember the stat?
I love it.
I will say too, like, that has always been, like, for this season, the way to attack the Ravens defense, like running backs through the air. It will become even more that way for any amount of time Kyle Hamilton is out. Kyle Hamilton might be the best safety in football at breaking up screens, and they were still that bad all season against running backs catching the ball. So if he's out, it's going to get even more, feasting on that for opposing running backs against Baltimore. The other thing I did just want to say quickly is, like, I agree. Because everybody's going to say, oh, he's a Ravens homer. He definitely thought it shouldn't have been a call. No, it was a missed call at the end of the game. Like, absolutely, the Ravens got away with one, no doubt. Having said that, there were also missed calls that hurt the Ravens earlier in the game. This one just happened to be the last play of the game, so it looks a lot more, bad, I guess. But no, it was absolutely a missed call. I also am like, you know what? You kind of deserve what you get, not just throwing the ball to Jamar Chase the way he'd been playing. Like, if you run up a play to anybody else, you kind of get what you ask for there. But yeah, it's a good point, Fitz. Like, I have, Chase and Lamar together in our work 14 team league, and I'm going up against our boss, Blaine. And yeah, his week's over already before it even begins, because I already have 90 points against him. And that's
I saw my Slack app light up late last night, and I was like, oh dear, does somebody have like Burrow and Chase? Yeah. And then I saw your message about, I wonder who has Lamar and Chase in our league. And I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, no, but super fun game. Obviously, like, one of the best games of the year. Great Thursday night game. As I tweeted last night, build the whole plane out of Ravens-Bengals games because they always deliver. And then again, not really much fantasy takeaway because the stars were stars. It was basically what even Derrick Henry had a down game, still like 60 yards and a touchdown. Like that's his floor. So super fun time. Obviously, I really enjoyed it. This is our Friday show. We're talking Week 10 key questions. Quick reminder that all of our weekly consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. And also, if you're juggling multiple fantasy football teams and feeling overwhelmed, Fantasy Pros will help you simplify things. With Fantasy Pros Multi-League Assistant, you can see the latest news, notes, and rankings for every single player across every single team. It's all in one spot, making your path to victory clearer and easier. Dive in and let us help you dominate all your leagues with the Multi-League Assistant at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Football My Playbook app. All right, guys, let's dive in. Question 1 here with the Germany game. Giants, quote unquote, at Panthers in Germany. What do we expect from the Panthers backfield given the possible, seemingly likely return of Jonathon Brooks, coupled with the extension for Chuba Hubbard? And you can kind of look at this for what we expect out of this matchup and also a little bit longer term given this extension news. D-Bro, what do you think?
I mean, I think Chuba's going to play the role he's been playing. He's going to play probably 75-80% of the snaps. I don't think much changes for him, obviously, especially with the franchise giving him the contract. Jonathon Brooks being active, I think if anything, he's probably going to cut into the snaps for Miles Sanders, and they probably eat into each other's work. But dude, when I saw that announced, I was really like, okay, this is interesting. Like, I do not disagree with culture and paying a player that's played well. I think Chuba has played extremely well. Do I think he is a star? No. I'd be very, and I just went to go pull it up. They still haven't released, or I haven't found anywhere where the contract language breakdown, like, is this really just a puffed up 1-year deal? Is this a 2-year deal and the money falls off after that? So I'll be very interested to see how that contract is structured. But for Jonathon Brooks, man, like either, and Fitzy, I'm really curious about where you stand with this because I know you like Brooks coming out, but like for Brooks and long-term value, I'm like, one of two things is probably true here. Either drafting a Jonathon Brooks in the second round was a bad move, or paying Chuba Hubbard, or maybe both. But like, I know a lot of people have made the comparison to the Detroit backfield. My entire thing is like, this is not a team ready to roll. This is not a team that, like, they have multiple roster holes, and it's not like they were top 3 in cap space before the Chuba Hubbard contract. So I get rewarding a player that has played really well. I don't understand it in the context of, like, you have so many other roster holes to plug and to figure out. Paying a running back, especially at this point of the season, should not have been the highest of priorities.
Yeah, the reason Montgomery and Gibbs work is A, the offensive line is awesome and allows them to work. And B, those guys are really good players. Like David Montgomery was a proven good player. Jahmyr Gibbs was a top 12 pick in the draft as a running back. Like making that comparison, I think, is foolish. Yeah, Fitz, what do you think we should expect out of the backfield for this week? Presuming that Jonathon Brooks is back on the field, and then also longer term.
First of all, just want to echo everything D-Bro said. Like, I realize organizations need more than one good running back to get through a season. Like, guys are going to get hurt, and you don't want to wear down your top guy. But it is like building a house and sort of putting in the windows before you do the plumbing. Like, the running backs should be kind of the last piece of the puzzle. And like, we've seen bad organizations overinvest in running backs, and I'm not trying to say running backs don't matter. They do, but it is a more fungible position than, offensive line, pass rushers, cornerbacks, quarterback, of course. So it's kind of weird that the Panthers are sort of building backwards here. They're building sort of inside out. I don't know if that's the right way to go, or maybe outside in. But so I like D-Bro, I'm expecting something close to the usual workload for Chuba. What does that mean? He's had at least 17 touches in 7 straight games, and he does deserve that sort of workload. He's averaging 5 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns in his last 7 games. He has been the best thing about the Carolina offense all season. Now, I could be wrong, but I tend to think the Brooks debut is sort of much ado about nothing. Really talented prospect. I'm excited about him for Dynasty and for the future, but the Panthers really don't have much incentive to give him substantial work, considering that, one, he's coming off this major injury, and two, they're not going anywhere this year. They're not making the playoffs. So maybe I'm wrong. I saw one person on Twitter throw out the idea, and I would give credit, but I forget who said this, that maybe it turns out to be sort of Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren usage for these two, with Chuba in the Najee role and Brooks in the Warren role. Maybe that's the case. I wouldn't want to see that, though, because I think that devalues both guys. Like, I don't think Dave Canellis likes to run the ball as much as Arthur Smith does. And also, like, it's a better setup for running backs in Pittsburgh, where you've got a defense that can actually hold people and get your offense the ball back and give you favorable game scripts. So I'd hate to see it turn out to be like that. I guess I should acknowledge the possibility it is, but right now I'm betting on something pretty close to the status quo with, as Debro said, Brooks threatening Miles Sanders' backup role more than Chuba's role.
Fitzy, I'm real curious with one thing before I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but like, I know people, as soon as that news hit, they were thinking about, okay, what do I do in Dynasty? And I'm like, is there any kind of thought for me? Because I just, and we don't have news, I'm not breaking news, but like, to just reading the tea leaves here, Carolina has been very, very conservative with Brooks, like more so than I think a lot of us even anticipated to this point. And now with this Chuba Hubbard extension, middle of the season, nowhere close to free agency, I'm kind of wondering, like, was the Brooks injury more substantial, or has the rehab not gone as well as, like, maybe they hoped, that it's kind of, like, pulled some of these levers? But, I mean, and I don't want to get too tinfoil hat here, but, like, did you think about that at all, like, looking at dynasty-wise and moving forward? Because those things kind of just, like popped off in my head after we saw the news.
I didn't, but we should probably consider that possibility.
It's funny, Fitz, you mentioned that they're like the Panthers don't have incentive to play Jonathan Brooks. They didn't really have incentive to pay Chuba Hubbard right now, and they still did. So maybe they don't,
Fair.
view it in that same way. I saw somebody, there was some quote about how they like view Chuba Hubbard as like the type of player that really like is emblematic of their franchise and who they want to be. And somebody was like, Packers, Bart Starr, Ravens, Ed Reed, Panthers, Chuba Hubbard. I mean, to me, the biggest case against paying Chuba Hubbard is Chuba Hubbard. You can find a guy like him in the 4th round of the draft. That's why you don't pay. It's not because running backs aren't good. It's because you can find them later, and also the shorter shelf life. So I don't know that this is going to be like the difference maker in the state of their franchise. Like, there was a lot wrong anyway. So you want to pay a guy that you like and has done a good job for you, sure, but I just think it's bad practice. And
sign Chuba Hubbard to an extension and pay him, or draft somebody like Tyrone Tracy. Is there a difference?
Yeah. Well, also too, like you said, Debra, you're like, I don't know what was bad, like drafting Brooks in the 2nd round or extending Chuba Hubbard. It's the fact that it's both. You can do one or the other.
Yeah, answer could be both. Easily both.
All right, let's go to a much more fun matchup. And I wouldn't have said this in August, but these have been two really fun teams for entirely different reasons this season. Steelers at Commanders. It's a historic offense what the Commanders are doing, and probably the best defense in football for Pittsburgh. So I'm keeping this key question simple. Who prevails, this great offense or this great defense? Fitz, I'll start with you.
Is it the best defense for him? Like, the Steelers are only 8.
I think it might be. I mean, I don't know what, like, statistically speaking what it is, but I think they're awesome. And when I watch them, I just feel like that's the toughest defense.
And they're definitely better than the Ravens, but I don't know about the best. We'll see.
I mean, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, they are a contender for best defense. I know they're only 8th in defensive DVOA, 7th against the run, 10th against the pass. But it'll be interesting to see what the acquisition of Preston Smith does for their pass rush, because right now Pittsburgh is only middle of the pack in sacks and pressure rate. Mm-hmm. And getting Preston Smith should help. Also helping getting my guy Nick Herbig back from a hamstring injury, because that guy's a terror off the edge. So that's going to make Pittsburgh tough with the University of Wisconsin edge combo of TJ Watt and Nick Herbig. But it's a really good defense, but I don't think we'll see a decisive winner in the matchup between the Pittsburgh defense and the Washington offense. I think Jaden Daniels will have his moments. I think they'll be able to move the ball in fits and spurts, but I don't think the Commanders are putting up a 40 burger on the Steelers either.
Debra?
Yeah, I'm kind of where Fitz is. Like, I think that both are going to have their moments. It's going to be a lot of push and pull. If I have to pick one winner out of this, I've not bet against Jaden Daniels the entire season. Like, even going back to prospect season, I'm not going to bet against him now. And it's specifically because of the reasons that Fitz stated, like talking about the pass rush. They've had the third lowest quarterback hurry rate. Now, maybe Preston Smith makes a dent in that. I doubt a serious dent in that for his first game. So, yes, I'm not betting against Jaden Daniels. Like, he's pretty much like between rushing equity and how good he has been as a passer, and this flows over to Terry McLaurin, they're pretty much freaking matchup proof. I don't care. I'm starting them just regardless of the matchup.
Is there any player in this game that you like, or on the Commanders' offensive side, that there's a bad matchup? Like, even if you're still starting them in the bad matchup, is there anybody that you are worried about?
Brian Robinson Jr., easiest player to talk about here. Terrible matchup on the ground. And the bigger point of like, okay, when you see running backs get these bad matchups on the ground versus really tough run defenses, then we're like, okay, like a la Chase Brown. You either need to get a lot of volume or get pass game work. And I don't think Brian Robinson Jr. gets either. So really you're hoping that he sucks out with touchdowns because he's been living in this 30% snap range when he's not been fully healthy. And maybe that goes up to 40%. But what are we talking about here? Like, he probably gets somewhere in the neighborhood of like 11 to 14 carries, no pass game work. I mean, really, so you're just betting on that he rips a long run, probably unlikely versus this run defense, or he scores a touchdown. So really that makes him a touchdown dependent RB3 instead of an RB2 where I think a lot of people kind of view him at.
By the way, Fitz, just to like, make sure people don't think I'm like just gassing up the AFC North or whatever. Like, I recognize that there are other teams that are better statistically defensively. Like, the Chiefs have a really good case, best defense in football. The Vikings, obviously. I just think the Steelers are really, really good is maybe the better way to frame it.
No, I agree. I would personally cast my vote for the Chiefs as the best defense in football, but
it probably is the Chiefs. I think I like the Steelers defense maybe better than the Vikings, even though the Vikings pass rush is amazing and they've been better so far this season, like if I'm projecting forward. But I think the Chiefs are probably the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Bills at Colts, two teams that would not be in that conversation for best defense in football. I want to talk about James Cook. We haven't really mentioned him a ton on this show or really any of the shows that we've done the last couple of weeks. The last 5 games, he has either been a top 5 running back or outside the top 24. Very boom or bust for James Cook. So, Debro, I ask you, where should he be ranked for week 10?
I've got James Cook right now at RB14. I think looking at him, and that's probably a little bit low, to be honest. I think he should be a low-end RB1 this week. I think it's more boom than bust. And looking at, this is just an easy narrative, man. Colts can't stop the run. Second most rushing yards allowed per game. They suck versus zone runs. 10th highest zone rushing success rate allowed. 61.5% of Cook's runs have been on zone concepts. I think this is a game where we should be ranking James Cook closer to being a top 5 option than being an RB2.
What do you think, Fitz?
I agree with Debro. Yes, the production has been somewhat uneven, but if you net it out, net results are 8 touchdowns in 8 games and 83.3 yards from scrimmage per game, which works out to, in PPR scoring, he is tied for RB10. In points per game among running backs with Jonathan Taylor and Kareem Hunt. And that seems about right because I think of all of those guys as low-end RB1s. I've got him RB11, James Cook this week. So, and the Colts, Debro says there's some things to like about the matchup. Other things, it is no worse than a neutral matchup and quite possibly a favorable one for James Cook. So, yeah, I think he should be a back-end RB1.
I just moved him up to RB10.
What kind of usage do you expect, Debro, given like also just the injuries for the receiving players in this offense? Keon Coleman already ruled out. Some question as of now when we're recording about Amari Cooper. Does that, really increase your interest in James Cook to a significant degree or maybe just a slight boost?
I think it boosts not only James Cook, but flow this over to Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. All 3 of these players have plus matchups this week. Every way you slice this. And now you're telling me that Amari Cooper is probably going to be out. We'll see what the news ends up being. Keon Coleman's already been ruled out. And Curtis Samuel has not been a full-time player in this offense. Mac Hollins has his moments. He probably catches a freaking touchdown that I'm actually saying all this. But this is all to say that, yes, like I want to be above consensus for those three specific players this week. And Worm, you'll have to tell me, where's Khalil Shakir in ranks right now? Because I have him right now at, Khalil, where are you? I've got him at wide receiver 17. Is that too high?
He's wide receiver 24 in ECR for half PPR scoring.
Because I think I might actually bump him up. Like, here's an interesting conversation, boys. And maybe this sounds crazy, but I'm sorry. Like, banged up plus has Cooper Rush as quarterback. Khalil Shakir or CeeDee Lamb? Who do you rather this week?
So they're actually back-to-back for the record in ECR.
Yep.
Yeah, I would much rather have Lamb.
Okay. And I think I take Shakir. I've seen too much Cooper Rush in my life.
Shakir's wide receiver 24, CeeDee Lamb's wide receiver 23 in ECR. So that's really interesting that you picked that name because they are. It's funny, like you look compared to like what you would think from the beginning of the season. Khalil Shakir's wide receiver 24, CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver 23, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide receiver 25. They are sandwiching Khalil Shakir, and Shakir is a good player who I liked even before the year, but seeing him between those two names says something about the state of all three of those guys, really.
Yeah, for anyone who is a CeeDee Lamb investor and being terrified by this conversation, we'll put a pin in it for now, but I will give you reason for optimism about CeeDee Lamb a little later in the show.
More Lamb coming up. The NFL season is rolling along, and the contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns. Fade to the corner of the end zone. Running back breaks through the line and gallops 60 yards to score. Tylan Wallace going tiptoeing down the line for 84 yards on Thursday night. We don't care how they get them. We want to bet on touchdowns. At DraftKings is the best place to do it. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player scoring a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Best game on the Week 10 slate remaining is probably Detroit-Houston. Looks like the Texans maybe not getting Nico Collins back for that one. Still a good team. Lions are getting Jameson Williams back. Lions laying a field goal in Houston for that one is how the line started in the week. Another surprisingly fun game we just talked about, Steelers-Commanders. Washington laying a couple points at home. And of course, the biggest total of the week was Ravens-Bengals on Thursday Night Football, and they surpassed that by a mile. Very high scoring game. Odds and lines subject to change on all games throughout the week, of course. Whichever game you bet, here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
I meant to bet the over Ravens mentions on this show today. It was plus money at 7.5 on DK. So I lament that I did not, because that would have already cashed.
We recap Thursday Night Football every week, so it was unavoidable.
But did you have to walk into the show looking like a Ravens intern, though? Like, do we have to get that?
I don't think I've
for everybody that's not watching on YouTube, it's there.
I don't think I've worn any Ravens stuff this entire season.
Oh, somebody's got to go back and fact check that.
I might have week one because they were on opening night. So I might have on that Thursday. Besides that, I don't really recall. I mostly wear like Fantasy Pro stuff, but it was an exciting game. I wanted to wear some purple. All right. Sue me.
Did you buy a purple FP jacket and just put did you sew that on there?
No, I did not get a purple FP shirt, but this is also a super comfortable sweater, so it's also just nice to. It's snowing outside. I want to be comfortable. I want to feel good, excited about my team. Right?
You always start that DraftKings read with the mention. The first type of touchdown is the fade to the corner of the end zone, and I know all the math nerds will point out that is a very low EV play call. But how much do you think Bengals fans are wishing they had tried a fade to the corner of the end zone on that 2-point conversion to Jamar Chase? I think that's what Kirk Herbstreit was basically calling that out as the play before it happened, and they tried something else and it didn't.
I was supposed to do that pass that Burrow threw over two Ravens defenders to thread the needle to Chase was insane. Yeah, it was, dude. Depending on every single angle, you're like, how did that happen?
As somebody who obviously was very motivated to see them not convert that 2-point conversion, the two plays I did not want to see them run were anything to Jamar Chase or any kind of pass to Chase Brown. Like I was really worried there was going to be some pass to the flat.
I didn't understand why they didn't throw it in the flat to Chase Brown. Like just let him run it in.
That was what I was most scared of as somebody who didn't want them to score. So I was happy to see a low percentage pass attempt to a tight end. That's all I'll say. All right, let's go to 49ers at Buccaneers. What do we expect out of the San Francisco offense now that we have the, I don't know if it's like 100% official, but pretty much official return of Christian McCaffrey? Fitz.
I'm guessing somewhere between 12 to 17 touches for McCaffrey, with Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerrero mixing in. Debo gets 6 to 8 short area targets and a few carries. Juwan Jennings takes over the Brandon Ayuk role as the primary downfield receiver, and George Kittle smashes this week against a Buccaneers defense that's given up the third most receptions and second most receiving yards to tight ends.
Debra?
Wheels up for everybody. I mean, CMC, I don't have him as an RB1 like ECR. I can't rank him as an RB1 in his first game back. Could he burn me in that way? But I've got him at RB16. I agree with Fitz as far as the projected workload. The way that he burns me is if he gets 2 touchdowns with that type of projected workload, which, I mean, that could happen. I'm more living in the area of he gets probably 1 score, pays off on being a top 15, top 20 running back for the week, and really Brock Purdy just unleashes the passing attack, man. Like Tampa Bay has had a Swiss cheese pass defense the entire season. I don't think that stops here. So yeah, it's wheels up for all the receiving options except for Ricky Pearsall, because with everybody back healthy, he's probably shoved down to like 5th in that target pecking order.
You know, Fitz, I really kind of struggle with ranking CMC this week. We got a lot of questions about him on the various live streams this week, and I found myself often siding with the other running back. Having said that, I don't know why San Francisco would bring him back unless he was like truly 100% like ready to go. And if he is 100% or really close to it, I don't know why we would think you won't get a ton of workload. So maybe it was wrong to kind of side with some of these other decent options ahead of him and wanting to see it for a game before he comes back. How are you approaching ranking him?
I've got him RB10, 1 spot ahead of James Cook, and you pretty much summed up my philosophy on injuries right there. Like if he is back, that means the team's medical staff has deemed him completely healthy. These like medical staffs don't want to bring players back prematurely and risk these guys having long-term absences. So I'm sure they're feeling confident enough about Christian McCaffrey's ability to, be Christian McCaffrey again. So, like I don't think they're going to give him 25 carries right away, although stranger things have happened. So with a slightly more subdued touch count, I still think back end RB1 is a pretty reasonable place for him.
Let's go to a game that I'm really fascinated by, Broncos at Chiefs. And we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, Fitz. I want to dive into it more here. This Denver defense had an outlier bad game in week 9 against the Ravens. The Chiefs offense had an outlier good game relative to what we've seen from them this season in week 9. So which of those outlier performances, again, relative to this season, will carry over into week 10, Fitz?
Well, wouldn't it have to be either both carryover or neither carryover, Worm? Because if it's an outlier good game for the Chiefs offense again, that means another outlier bad game for the Broncos defense.
You could make the case of like, you see good offense beating good defense or playing well, but I take your point.
I feel like I'm a teacher grading a paper here. So sorry, here you go, Worm, with all the red marks. So I don't know if the Chiefs offense is entirely fixed. Let me ask the two of you a couple of quick questions about the wide receivers. First, DeAndre Hopkins the rest of the way. If I set the over-under at low-end wide receiver 2 value, would you bet over or under?
Over. I want him. I think he's a low-end wide receiver 1, top 15.
I would bet over.
Yeah. Same here. I think maybe high-end to mid-range wide receiver 2. And the other question, is Xavier Worthy droppable?
Yes, he is.
Man,
he is, and all of that. It really comes down to usage, Fitzy. And when I looked up his numbers from last week, his first read target share dropped to 4%. His ADOT went up to 23. He legit, like, they had been playing him in a Rashee Rice-esque role and feeding him like a 25-30% first read share up until last week. DeAndre Hopkins took over that role. So he is going to play that role, and people need to understand that because he played 45% of his snaps in the slot as well. Xavier Worthy kept the role as a full-time player in the offense, but he is just like rest of season, he's droppable. He is now playing the Demarcus Robinson, the MVS role where he is running clear outs and cardio. It's sad, but dude, that's exactly what the numbers say from last week.
I was telling Worm on the show we did with Erickson yesterday that like two of the biggest red herrings of the fantasy season came in that Thursday night opener between the Chiefs and the Ravens, with Xavier Worthy scoring the 2 touchdowns and Isaiah Likely having the huge game. Like, you would have thought those guys would be immensely valuable this season, and they have just like...
Also, Derrick Henry looking like he would need touchdowns to be relevant.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
First week too. Yeah, a lot of stuff didn't pan out.
Interesting. Don't overreact to 1 week.
To answer your questions, Fitz, on DeAndre Hopkins, like I do agree. He's actually ranked in our ECR for rest of season as wide receiver 26. Like I think that's going to continue to go up.
Low.
But that's a sign that maybe right now you should go try and trade for Hopkins in your league. Because we think that's off. We think he's misvalued. As far as Worthy goes, philosophically, I really like investing in second half of the season, talented, first round rookie receivers. Everything we have seen on the field in terms of usage and in terms of the actual play, the eye test, the stats, like he is an obvious drop, if not for the fact that he falls under the umbrella of the types of players I philosophically like to pursue. So if I can get past that, barrier, then yes, I think he's definitely a drop candidate.
Yeah, maybe there's something to be said for the theory that like the Andy Reid offense is hard for rookies to pick up because we saw Sky Moore completely bust.
I was going to say, he's not the first rookie receiver to struggle in this.
No,
offense.
I mean, maybe Kansas City just needs to start just signing veteran wide receivers and quit with drafting rookies and hurting our heart.
Rasheed Rice took off in the second half of his rookie season too, and then looked like a superstar.
Yeah, I guess Rice, that's the obvious exception.
That's fair.
Debra, what do you think about this game? And, given that we saw the Broncos statistically had a case in that best defensive football argument. Again, statistically speaking, they were facing easier competition, prior to last week, and then they get absolutely roasted. So do you think that's more typical of what we're going to see from them going forward? Again, it's hard to know if the Chiefs are a similarly difficult matchup because, historically, sure, but this season, not so much. Last week, yes. What do you think of this one?
So, first of all, nobody can stop Derrick Henry and the Ravens rushing attack. Nobody. You can just hope to try to quell that storm a little bit or try to contain them. Good luck. You're not doing that. Even since we talked about Derrick Henry had a down game last night. It's just a fact. So I think that the Broncos will be able to contain Kareem Hunt to an extent. He's still going to probably sniff 25 opportunities, and it's not going to matter because of the volume he's going to see. But the big thing that I want to highlight with this matchup is that what has been helping Denver and really, really helped their pass defense is Patrick Surtain shadowing guys and taking the number one wide receivers off the board. Now, the Ravens exploited this last week and said, okay, fine. You don't move into the slot a whole lot, so we're going to play our best wide receiver in the slot 60% of the time. You're telling me that Andy Reid's not going to do the same damn thing after playing DeAndre Hopkins in the slot 45% of the time last week? So, yeah, I think Hopkins probably sees a 50, maybe 60% slot rate. I think Travis Kelce is going to get volume and get his, and I think the Chiefs are going to roll. I don't know if we see Mahomes be as good as he was last week, because it's been a long time, but I think we're going to see probably he's going to be in that 18 to 20 fantasy point range this week or close to it. And the Chiefs might not look as good as they did last week, but they're still going to look very, very good. And Hopkins is still going to have a good game.
Quickly, no explanation, no thoughts. Just give me a number. Patrick Mahomes, rest of season will be fantasy QB blank.
10.
11.
Yep. 10 and 11. Okay, so low end. QB1 for the guys. Let's go to another matchup here. Falcons at Saints. Divisional matchup here. Fun rivalry when the teams are good. Are there any Saints beyond Alvin Kamara worth starting now that they have a new head coach? We often see teams kind of change up their philosophy. You sometimes get that new coach, bump for the players. Are there any players in New Orleans we want to start setting aside Alvin Kamara, Debra?
Taysom Hill. That's it. It's just King Taysom, man. Like, regardless, I mean, he is like Thanos. He is inevitable. All roads lead back to Taysom Hill and the Saints offense. It's like, oh, well, what did Taysom do last time he played the Falcons? Oh, that's right. He got 2 rushing scores. Okay, and Atlanta's still bad versus the rushing attack. Okay, check. Oh, wait, is Atlanta any good versus tight ends? Nope, allowing the 9th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. Okay, well, check. So regardless of, you want to talk about Taysom, the rushing weapon, boom. You want to talk about Taysom, the receiving weapon, who also, by the way, led the team with a 20% first read share last week. Boom, he's going to pop off that way. So, I mean, either way it goes, all roads lead back to Taysom Hill.
D-Bro, Taysom Hill is tight end 8 in ECR. Is that too high, too low, or
That's
just right?
too low. I've got him. That's too low. I mean, I've got him at. Let me see. I've got Taysom Hill right now. I had him at tight end 5 earlier in the week. I dropped him. He is tight end 8 in my ranks, but I do think it was too low. I will slap my own wrist with that one.
What do you think, Fitz?
Spicy. I've got him at tight end A2. And I agree with D-Bro's assessment. Look, Chris Olave out, Rashid Shaheed out for the year. Alvin Kamara with 35 touches last week. Like, he's not going to survive if they keep giving him that sort of workload. So, I mean, it seems like the more adverse things the Saints offense is dealing with, the better it is for Taysom Hill. So D-Bro comped him to Thanos. I would comp him to a funeral home director, because tragedy is good for business for Taysom Hill.
Wow. Alvin Kamara.
That's a really dark metaphor, but it totally fit, dude.
Alvin Kamara is RB5 in ECR, by the way. Do you worry that he's just going to get 100% of the defensive attention here, or the volume is king and he'll be fine?
I mean, defensive attention when the defense can't stop the run doesn't really matter to me.
I've got him at consensus. You would think maybe there would be a little bit of pullback and that they're not looking to get him 25 plus touches this week if they can help it.
I'm not trying to make the case to get away from Kamara, obviously. Like, you should start him. Just wanted to ask the question. But over under 28.5 touches for him in this game.
It's a good line.
All right. Growing up, basketball was never near the top of my list of favorite sports. I always preferred baseball and then football as I got older. But once I was in college at Maryland, I completely fell in love with the atmosphere at college basketball games, the energy, the passion, the noise, the chills. There's no fan experience in the world quite like a high-level college hoops game. I still remember storming the court in my final game as a student senior year against UVA. And now that I'm a decade past my days as a student, which is sad to think about, when I need basketball tickets, I turn to Game Time, which is fun to think about. Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. The list of my favorite features on the Game Time app is too long to read everything. Here are some standouts for me personally. I love the Game Time Picks curation, obviously, especially since I can use it for not just sports, but concerts, comedy, theater, and more. I also love the all-in pricing, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. There's nothing in the world more infuriating to me than thinking I know what I'm about to spend on a purchase, and then getting hit with a surprise fee at the last second. That doesn't happen with Game Time. Plus, I appreciate the seat views to get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you commit to buying. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code FantasyPros for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code FANTASYPROS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Fitz, my next key question is, how scared are you as a Wisconsin fan of having Derek Queen in the Big Ten now?
Hey, we're 2-0, man. We've beaten Holy Cross and University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Did you storm the court after those?
No, I did not. But yeah, hopefully this much hyped prospect works out better for Maryland than Diamond Stone, who you plucked away from Wisconsin, and turned out to be not that good despite all the hand wringing.
I'm just gonna take a nap when y'all start talking basketball. Okay, I'll be back.
I suppose I should have known that was coming, considering that Diamond Stone almost went to Wisconsin. So that was a fair game. Let's go to an actual football question. Patriots-Bears. Drake Maye is quarterback 22 in ECR for week 10, but he's been QB 10, QB 7, and QB 18 in his 3 healthy starts this season. Should he be ranked higher, even in what is clearly a tough matchup? Fitz, I'll start with you this time.
On paper, it's a tough matchup. The Bears have allowed the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, but the Bears also seem like they might be collapsing. They responded to their Hail Mary loss to the Commanders by getting their wigs peeled back by the Arizona Cardinals last week in the desert. So team morale seems low. Matt Eberflus's job is probably hanging by a thread right now. So I don't think this is that scary a matchup for Drake Maye. Although the Bears are expected to get edge rusher Montez Sweat and cornerback Kyler Gordon back, which is going to help that defense. But still, 3 games for Drake Maye that he's started and finished. He's averaging 241.6 passing yards, 2 touchdown passes, and 50.3 rushing yards.
Man.
So I have Drake Maye ranked QB 21, and I feel like that might be too conservative.
I was going to say, based on everything you just laid out, I was guessing you were going to say he's top 20, top 18.
It's a weirdly good week for quarterbacks, I feel.
Yeah, agreed.
I guess, yeah, if you look at it, like the guys ranked ahead of him, who were you dropping? You know, Russell Wilson is one spot ahead of him, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams in the same matchup, Herbert, who I know you have really high, Fitz, Stroud, Daniel Jones. Those are the names that are directly above Drake Maye, and there's cases to be made for a lot of those guys.
Yeah,
so,
I've got him ahead of Stroud if Nico Collins isn't back.
Yeah.
And if, you know, I think I have him one spot ahead of Caleb. Now I've got him one spot behind Caleb, and I might have to change that. I think I'd rather play Maye than Caleb this week.
Wow. Debra, what do you think? Again, Maye is QB 22. So given this matchup, is that too high, too low, or just right?
As we're kind of going through this, I felt like I was being dismissive too. I bumped him up to QB 16. I don't want to play him. I think other quarterbacks, they're not in my ranks in this range, but I would still play Aaron Rodgers over him. I would still play Justin Herbert over him. But I think playing him over Stroud, even Baker Mayfield, Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, Bo Nix, all of those guys, I think Maye needs to be ranked above them. But there are other players that are in the QB2 range that I will still play over Maye. I think Drake Maye versus Tua this week is a very interesting conversation. I think that's kind of where my line is.
By the way, like, you know, we're focusing on the 3 games that he started and completed healthy. In that 4th game that he left early, he still had 46 yards and a touchdown on not a lot of playing time. Like, that's just another kind of feather in his cap in terms of what this rushing is. I wonder if we are, not we, the 3 of us, but we as an industry are like not reacting quickly enough to the rushing equity that you get with Drake Maye. Like we knew that he could do this at North Carolina, and the people who liked him in rookie drafts and dynasty leagues said this is a guy who can run too. But I don't know that he's being ranked as a guy who is as good a runner as Drake Maye is.
I think the best comparison, I think that is very spot on, Worm, that we are probably not catching up quick enough to his rushing upside and his production. I'm not saying he is this player, and I'm not saying he has the attributes of this player. I'm also not saying that he has the same type of talent, anything like that. But I think this is very close to the production we are getting in fantasy to a dollar store version of rookie season Josh Allen.
Yeah. I can see that, like, even like stylistically, like just like for example, a couple spots ahead of him, Bo Nix, somebody who's there because he's also shown us the rushing equity. I believe just as much in Maye's ability to run as an NFL quarterback as Bo Nix, and Nix is going up against the Chiefs, who we just said might be the best.
I mean, Nix is dollar store Daniel Jones, so it's pretty much
quick note on that. Drake Maye averaged 10 rushing attempts during his 2 seasons as a starter at North Carolina. 10.
Yeah. I think Drake Maye is really good. I'm really excited to see what he does once the Patriots get some better players around him in future seasons. I did have a second question in this game, and you kind of touched on this briefly, Fitz. Just the vibes around the Bears are not good. So I just wanted to kind of throw out, like, which Chicago player do we have the most faith in for fantasy this week?
Oh, most. It's not a question of most, Worm. It's a question of only. It's DeAndre Swift. That's it. And I mean, I don't feel good about having any other Bear in my starting lineup. And I say this as someone who is forced to, in our company league, start Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze this week. And I don't feel good about it in the least.
Debra, same question.
I mean, the only one I feel good about starting is DeAndre Swift. I agree with Fitz.
Okay.
Now, I think, like, when the question is posed, I think a lot of people are going to say, okay, which wide receiver, if you have to start one of these wide receivers, who would you feel most comfortable starting this week? It's not DJ Moore. I want to lead off with that. I think he gets shadowed by Christian Gonzalez. I don't want to play DJ Moore. The only guy that I actually would feel any modicum of, okay, I think he's got talent. I think he's going to get targets and the matchup is good for him is Rome Odunze. And he's been popping off, man. Since they come back from the bye, he's been more integrated in this offense. Since week 8, 20% target share, 2.1 yards per route run. So he's the only player from that, because it's not Cole Kmet. Keenan Allen has done nothing. They're not even on the same page. That was one of my biggest worries about Keenan Allen going to Chicago is Caleb Williams doesn't consist. And that's the problem with Caleb Williams right now. He doesn't consistently, and I went on a rant on this yesterday, so Worms already heard this, but he doesn't consistently play on schedule. And if you have a guy running out of the slot that's a timing-based player that is route running, all this stuff, and it's not, okay, when the play breaks down and we run the merry-go-round, that's not, Keenan Allen's not going to succeed in an offense or with a player like that.
4.7 yards per target for Keenan Allen this season.
And it's not a Keenan Allen problem. I want to be very specific about that. If you look at the per route metrics, that's not a Keenan Allen problem. That's a Caleb Williams problem.
Let's go to Eagles at Cowboys. D-Bro, how are we approaching the Dallas offense in fantasy with Dak Prescott out and CeeDee Lamb banged up?
Tentatively, I don't think Cooper Rush is any good. Rico's going to get volume, but it's a horrible, horrible matchup. I think a lot of people look at him as a volume-based RB2. I can't rank him there because the matchup is horrible for him. He's an RB3 for me, just volume-based. CeeDee Lamb, a wide receiver 2. I'm not playing Jalen Tolbert. I'm not playing any other pass catcher from that offense outside of Jake Ferguson. And Jake Ferguson I have as a tight end 2 this week. I just think you downgrade everybody, and the guys you are playing out of this offense are very slim, and it's all volume-based.
Fitz?
And no, I don't care about Jonathon Mingo, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, like everybody else.
It had to be mentioned because people are going to ask us questions.
No, it's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up. I fully endorse not caring about him.
I'm worried about Jonathon Mingo devaluing all my Kevontae Turpin shares. So
deep dynasty best ball, baby.
Yeah, so
rears its ugly head.
I agree with Debro on Dowdle and Ferguson. I've got Dowdle RB25 and Ferguson tight end 16. Don't want to play either of those guys, but I did promise earlier in the show some CeeDee Lamb optimism. So for all the Lamb stakeholders out there, here is your mint jelly. In 2022, Dak Prescott got hurt early in the season, and Cooper Rush had to make 5 starts for the Cowboys. In those 5 starts, CeeDee Lamb averaged 6.2 catches, 76 yards, and had 2 touchdowns. So, he was still very playable when Cooper Rush started those 5 games. So, pretty good chunk of the schedule. CeeDee Lamb still productive. I've got him ranked wide receiver 9. And it's kind of because of the texture of the wide receiver position this week. There aren't, I don't know, I feel good about maybe 7 receivers this week, and after that things get kind of dicey. So he's still kind of in the dicey category, but I am ranking him as a low-end wide receiver 1 this week.
Those who are listening on the audio feed have already heard earlier in the show my conversation with Colin Coward. We do the over-under challenge every week. And so for those on the video side who don't have that as part of this episode, we did talk about how when you're a backup quarterback, what do? You throw to the superstar. So as long as CeeDee Lamb can handle the targets, and health-wise, he will get the targets. This is what backup quarterbacks do. It's the best way to stay a backup quarterback is to know kind of where your bread is buttered. And in this offense, that is very clearly CeeDee Lamb. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some real decent volume for Lamb in this one. Efficiency going to be a question mark.
That bread could be starting to kind of turn moldy. Just going to mention.
Yeah. It's a fair rebuttal. Let's go to Sunday night. Before we get to the key question for Sunday night's matchup, I want to ask you guys about your Uber Eats Sunday night meals of the week. D-Bro, what must-order food gets you reaching for your Uber Eats app for great game day deals when you think of Houston?
I think it's kind of dismissive, the fact that we only have 1 day a week that is synonymous with tacos. I want all 7 freaking days of the week synonymous with tacos, and I'm going to Brothers Tacos. Just all the freaking tacos, all the cilantro, all of it, all the time.
I fully endorse having tacos more than once a week. I strongly agree with that. Fitz,
you can eat them for every meal. We have breakfast tacos, lunch, dinner.
I make breakfast tacos 4 times a week.
Yes!
Honestly,
Chorizo
they're
tacos, 101.
amazing.
Easy.
Fitz, how about you?
Man, I feel like I should mention Vietnamese food because I know Houston is known for great Vietnamese food. But I have to go with, like, I'm always a fool for barbecue. And I've heard really good things about Gatlin's barbecue in Houston.
Yeah, I was going to say some variation of barbecue as well. Debra, when we talked about this in Slack, I was surprised that wasn't the first place you went was barbecue. I just think of Texas. Is that like more of a Dallas thing or more of an other parts of Texas thing? Or is Houston? I mean, I haven't been to Houston, but I would assume the barbecue is still superb
No,
there.
barbecue is still good, but tacos are the 101s. I'm just not picking anything above tacos. But the one thing I did tell you in Slack when we were talking about this, I also saw when I was looking up Houston places to eat that like Creole and Louisiana cuisine was part of a thing. And I was like, no. We are not. Every single Louisiana person that listens to this show will tell you you're not getting Cajun or Creole food outside of Louisiana unless that chef happened to work in Louisiana and is from there. Past that, no. No.
I know we're talking Houston and New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans, and the biggest reason I want to go, I think it would be a really fun place to go.
Food, man.
But I want to go for the food so badly. Like I would gain 35 pounds in a long weekend. That is really appealing to me. So there you have it. Our Uber Eats Sunday night meals of the week. We've got some tacos of any variety, I'll say, on any day of the week. And we like some barbecue as well. Uber Eats has the best game day deals all season long. Order now for game day. Okay, guys, Lions at Texans. I think probably the game of the week, even with the Texans not at full strength, it's seeming like. Can CJ Stroud get back to playing at a high level, even if Nico Collins isn't suiting up in this one, Fitz?
No, I've got him at quarterback 23 right now. Stroud has thrown for less than 200 yards in 3 of the 4 games that Nico has been out. He's only averaging 1 touchdown pass a game over that stretch. And the Texans' offensive line has completely fallen apart. When we last saw Houston on Halloween night, the Jets sacked CJ Stroud 8 times in that game. But this goes back like 3 games. The Texans' offensive line is playing worse now than it did early in 2023, CJ Stroud's rookie season, when they had like 4 starters hurt. And I was worried that CJ Stroud might not survive, that he might be like David Carr early in his career, getting sacked so much that it ruined him. He survived that just fine. But like, I don't know if he can survive what's going on right now because they are not protecting him at all.
Debra, what do you think? And by the way, in ECR, he's QB 17. Fitz has already kind of discussed how he's lower on Stroud than consensus. I'm not sure where you stand.
Wherever consensus is going to come in at. You said he's QB 17 right now?
Yep.
I got him at QB 20. I'm going to play Caleb over him, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Drake Maye, Tua. And for all
Herbert
the reasons,
is ranked 1 spot behind Stroud right now.
That's ridiculous. Herbert should not be ranked that low. That's dismissive to whatever. Herbert has been the QB 10 over the last 3 weeks. So get with it, people. He's a QB 1 this week. What are we doing here? But with Stroud, and for all the reasons that Fitz brought up, man, the offensive line is playing terrible. His ceiling is so heavily correlated to Nico Collins that if Nico doesn't play, he's a bottom end QB2, and it's not a Stroud problem. It's an everything else around him problem. Like since week 7, tell me what quarterback can succeed in an offense since week 7. CJ Stroud is facing the 8th highest pressure rate in the league. Oh no, excuse me, the highest. So I'm sorry, I'm underselling this. It's the 8th fastest time to pressure, but the highest pressure rate. He has been pressured since week 7 on 54% of his dropbacks. Tell me what freaking quarterback in the NFL can succeed like that? Who? With also downgraded weapons? Nobody. The answer you're searching for is nobody. Yep, so don't lay this at the feet of CJ Stroud.
Week 7 was that game against the Packers where I think the Packers pressure rate on CJ Stroud was like 62.8%, and it was the highest of the season. Like
insane.
Over 50% for a 3-week stretch. That is just awful.
Horrible.
So obviously we all agree that the majority of the problem is not CJ Stroud. Do you think that 0 of the blame is Stroud, or is it just like, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like 1 or 2? It's like a very low amount. Do you think there's anything that he is doing wrong and can be doing better, or it is like truly 100% the other stuff around him.
I think it's a 1 or a 2. I think there are a few times where we've seen him miss throws, but like
hard to blame him.
It's not a second year fall off in the way, like at the box scores. I understand why people are upset or fantasy, whatever. I get that. If you watch the games at all, the talent's still there, the composure, like, I mean, dude, when you playing quarterback, when you got somebody in your freaking face, as soon as you hike the ball, like you don't even have time to go through your progressions, even maybe get to your second read. What the hell is he supposed to do? Like, seriously.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to ask a question because I agree with you. Dolphins at Rams, Monday Night Football. Fitz, we received tons of start-sit questions this week about Jaylen Waddle on every live stream that we did. And I know we talked about him a bit on Thursday with Erickson, Fitz. So I'll throw to you first here. What are our expectations for Jaylen Waddle against the Rams?
Yeah, I'll kind of repeat what I said on Thursday, and I echoed what our guest Jacob Gibbs of CBS had said on our wide receiver ranking show earlier in the week. So Jacob made the great point about Jaylen Waddle. Like he just sort of reiterating what an excellent player he is. And that goes back to college where he had the highest yards per route run in college of any receiver since 2020, which includes guys like Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. Waddle was good enough to be the number 6 overall pick in the draft. Starts his NFL career with 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So then we get to this year, and the Miami passing game was obviously completely broken for the 4 games that Tua was out. And of the 4 games that Tua has played, 2 of them were against the Bills, who have one of the lowest wide receiver target rates in the league and basically just kind of take away outside receivers. So in one of the other 2 Tua games, Jaylen Waddle had 5 catches for 109 yards. So don't overthink it. Jaylen Waddle is really, really good. If you have him, he should be in your lineup against a Rams defense that's given up the 8th most fantasy points to receivers.
D-Bro, the way we talked, you and me on this live stream yesterday, I think you disagree.
I mean, I disagree in the sense of like, I think there's a lot of good context there, but the other part about it is like, this offense is running the same way that it ran last year. And I know we have a smaller snippet with Tua, but this offense has been running heavily through Tyreek Hill. And that was the problem last year for Waddle. My problems with Waddle have nothing to do with Waddle, the player. Waddle is awesome. Every single per route metric that you look at, he is awesome. But the offense is not running through him. It's Tyreek Hill, it's Devon Achane, and Jonnu Smith. They are the players that are getting the target share. And this is not just like, so for me, it's if Tua is going to throw it in his dang direction, then sure, I'm totally in on Jaylen Waddle. Like, I've got him as a wide receiver 3. That's my problem with it. Like, I'm really high, and the matchup is really good for Jonnu Smith this week as well. And Devon Achane is going to get his target. So my problem with Waddle has nothing to do with Waddle. It has everything to do with the composition of this offense. Now, we could talk about the matchup some, but it's not like we didn't see this the entirety of in all of last season, where Jaylen Waddle was awesome in per route metrics, yards per route run, everything, but he didn't get the target share. He didn't get the first read share. The targets went elsewhere. And that's just the composition of the offense. So, like, I think he has the upside, but he is volatile and he's a dice roll for me. Like, I would not feel good about starting Jaylen Waddle as a wide receiver 2. You give me Jaylen Waddle as a high upside flex or a wide receiver 3, and I'm just I'm playing him for the possible ceiling outcome. Sure, I'm all in, but as a floor option, heck no.
Fitz, Jaylen Waddle is wide receiver 29 in ECR. Too high, too low, just right.
Too low. I've got him wide receiver 24. He's never been a high volume guy, D-Bro. He's always operated at just remarkably high efficiency.
Well, rookie season, Jarvis Landry role was different.
Yeah.
D-Bro, wide receiver 29, too high, too low, just right.
I've got him. Where is Jaylen Waddle? I just moved him in my ranks. I've got him at 28, so I'm in that same area code.
All right, we'll wrap up there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Those were our Week 10 key questions. Best of luck in Week 10. Hopefully your weeks go as well for you as they started off for me. For Fitz and I just squeeze one more in there. For Fitz and D-Bro, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And best of luck. Like I said, we'll see you again next time.